vaccine. So we're not going to go into that. I'm going to give a little bit more explanation in the lecture. Deworming during pregnancy, there's a huge debate on whether or not you have an influence on the migrating larvae. And I don't know if you know the life cycle of the classic worm called Toxacara. It stays in a resting phase in the muscles of the bitch. And when the bitch is pregnant, these dormant or sleeping larvae, they wake up, they go up to the uterus, they infect the puppies, and the puppies are already infected with larvae up to the level where it's in their lungs. And now the debate is whether or not the drugs are able to kill these migrating larvae, yes or no. It depends on the drug you use, it depends on the dosage you use, but I would not recommend doing it. I would just try to deworm your bitch appropriately before, but I wouldn't do this during pregnancy. It's not that tremendously bad that some of the puppies have some Toxacara larvae in their lungs. You can start treating them when the puppies are about 2 weeks of age. Use of safe anti-parasitides, like against fleas and things like that. I just wouldn't do it. I just would try to avoid drugs as much as possible. Moderate physical exercise, maintain a good body condition and muscle tone. It helps having a normal parturition process. So don't make your dog into a potato couch because she's pregnant. Being pregnant is not a disease; it's a physical state. So I would just go. Okay, you don't overdo your dog, but just keep her in shape, and you will find out the benefits when your dog is giving birth. So drug during pregnancy, antibiotics do not use. Absolutely not. There are hardly any reasons, and if you really have a need to give antibiotics, it's probably because your bitch is dying or on the edge of dying from something very, very important, but do not use this in a preventative way. If I have the time, I can go into the newest findings that we heard at the latest conference from the European Vet Association on small animal reproduction. And the website down is that it's all about the bacteria in the vagina and in the uterus giving a state of inflammation. You know, having a bacteria is an infection that creates an inflammation in the uterus, and that is the reason why sometimes bitches stay empty. Not because of the bacteria as such, but because they create an inflammation in the uterus. That's also one of the reasons why some people used to give an anti-inflammatory drug like Metacam-like stuff, and they found out that their pregnancy rate was higher. Now, Metacam doesn't kill your bacteria, it reduces the inflammatory state, and that was one of the reasons. Okay, I'm not in favor of giving drugs, but the one that did find out that they were able to solve to some extent the problem that the bitch was empty. And if you give antibiotics, okay, you kill the bacteria, you reduce the amount of inflammation, and you assume that it was the bacteria that made the uterus go ill and have a lower pregnancy rate. But it was not because of the bacteria, because you just avoided the bacteria to turn the uterus into an inflammatory state. This is, I would say, really new, but it's something that they discovered over the last few months and years. Feeding through pregnancy, less than 30% of the fetal growth occurs during the first 2/3 of gestation. And they really grow tremendously fast in the last phase. So that means that you do not have to feed them as much in the first 2/3 of pregnancy, because your fetus is maybe whatever, 1.5 centimeters. Everything is being developed, okay, but it's not about the energy content that you have to put into your pregnant bitch. It's about giving not only the right amount of food, but the perfect quality, but not a lot of food. So definitely the first 5 weeks don't overfeed them, because we know that uterine contractions are reduced with overweight dogs. Another reason why you don't have to overfeed them in the first few weeks, they seem to have a depot of energy within their fat, and in the second part of the pregnancy, it would be better that your dogs were more hungry so that they can continue eating. But if you overfed them in the first few months, they're going to stop eating, and then you really end up in trouble. So because fasting leads to ketoacidosis, leading to the pregnancy toxemia. So what I would recommend you is don't hunger them out in the first few weeks, but it's really better that they are a little bit, I would say, underfed, but try to make sure that they eat appropriate amounts in the second part and definitely in the last 2 weeks in order to prevent this pregnancy toxemia in the last few weeks. There are some classical rules. Use concentrated puppy food because at some time when your bitch is pregnant with, let's say, a big litter, there's no place anymore to get enough food into the stomach. So give more concentrated food like puppy food. And you can start mixing it up from, let's say, the 6th week. As I said, the first 5-6 weeks, you just give regular food, and then you start mixing up 35% puppy, halfway, 3/4, and full puppy food in the last week. This is usually the energy content in the fruit on dry matter in most of the brands that you can find. Feeding through pregnancy, calcium requirements increase in late gestation and during lactation, but it does not justify providing extra amounts of calcium and vitamin D in the diet, on the condition that you are giving appropriate food, balanced food. No vitamins, minerals, just use balanced food. People within the, let's say, trustworthy companies, they have done a tremendous effort in making good food. If they wouldn't do this, they would run out of business in a very short time. They've always been there, not all of them. There's some really crap food on the market, but there's some really good balanced food. Just take it into account that they've done a lot of effort in making it really balanced. So who are we to do a little bit of changes, a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that? If this would really be necessary, they would have done it in the factory, because they are really supported by a lot of scientific people, also veterinarians, nutritionists. So do not reinvent the wheel, just use proper food. Okay. When will the partus happen? That's also something which is nice to know. Now, if you're able to find out when your ovulation time was, according to your LHP or your progesterone wise, you know that it's about 62 plus minus 1 day. There is this range, but this is because you made them too early or too late. You can also measure the fetus head. It's not easy. You have to be very experimental in it. And what you're going to do at about 40 to 50 days of pregnancy, you're going to measure the diameter of the neck, you're going to measure the diameter of the thorax, and then you have this nice calculation that is going to take this amount of days before the dog is going to give birth. But I wouldn't do this. What you also can do is just measure the progesterone. When it's going below 2 nanograms per milliliter, then you know that it will happen soon. We also have a temperature drop 1 or 2 days before due course. It's quite trustworthy, but it's not because it does not happen that you have a problem. If it does happen, you can count on it. So I would encourage you to do the temperature measurement. I wouldn't do the progesterone drops, I haven't done it at least, but I'm just mentioning it because there is a possibility to do this. I constantly hear my voice in my ear, so everyone's going to have to listen. I hope you don't hear this through the microphone. Okay, oops. About do's and don'ts during partus. Be prepared. Less stress. The dog feels that you're in stress because you're in a hurry to prepare all these things, and she's not aware that you are doing this for her sake. She thinks that you're only stressed, and that's not really beneficial. Be sure that the well-being box is there, that you have the towel, the paper rolls, the heat source, the scissors, and the bulb, and everything you need. Handle with care, gently pull downwards. I'm going to show you a slide on that one. Remove fluids, mucus, no swinging, but gentle massage. There was a day, and I also did this, doing like this with the puppy. He or she survived, several of them survived, but that's really a bad idea. This was 30 years ago. But I also did this. So no swinging, gentle massage, acupuncture points, I'm going to show this as well. Keep records there. You have this app, GAR score, also to be found on the internet. I'm going to explain in a while. The rubber bulb is in fact to try to get the fluid out of the nose if necessary. What I usually do is I keep the puppy with her head downwards and gently squeeze a little bit on the thorax, and then you see the fluid dripping out. If there's a lot of fluid inside, it's usually because the baby will start trying to breathe, at least at the moment that he or she, that the baby is still inside vagina and really inhaling the fluids that were there anyway, just gently with the head down and then try to push it out, or use the rubber belt. To be honest, I don't use the rubber belt. Pulling downwards, what I mean is that I'm going to try to explain it more or less. This is the dog. Here's the dog is standing up. The dog is not giving birth to a puppy while standing up, but it's just for the sake of explaining it to you. Here's the head, here's the tail. Don't push like this, don't pull, I mean like this, but down. So this is because the anatomy of the uterus vagina also goes like this. And I don't know if you can see it, but it goes, so don't pull, how do you say, perpendicular to the tail, but a little bit downwards. Here there are some gloves. Yeah, do you need to wear gloves? It's up to you. If you're cleaning your hands properly, you don't have to do it, to my opinion. Anyway, you open the sex, you just tear it apart here, and then here on the next slide you see it. Here the bitch was doing it, but you can as well doing it. You just gently turn the sack over the body, and then it's still hanging more or less at the umbilical cord, and then you have the puppy. You just hold it a little bit upwards, and you try to make it dry, or that the bitch lick the puppy, of course. Just simple procedures that you are all acquainted with, I assume. This is the acupuncture point. This dog doesn't have a red knot on its nose, but it's just to point out where you're allowed to put a needle, not with an adult. I wouldn't recommend you doing this with an adult dog, putting a needle there. But you can use a 25 gauge needle for the people who are not into needles. The 25 gauge needle is the orange, very short, small needle that you usually do to inject insulin, for instance. Not that, I'm sure that none of you are using it, but the ones that are using drugs use. It's a very short needle. And you can really go inside here, just in the middle, and it seems to provoke this breathing response with the puppy. You know, if they are losing the puppy, you can as well try it. I wouldn't just go use it immediately, but if you said he's or she's gonna die anyway, just try it out. And with some of them it seems to help. I also use this, not with a needle, but when the dog is under anesthesia, an adult dog under anesthesia, and he or she stops breathing, I just do this and I really squeeze very hard. And some of them, they start respirating faster. And they call this the acupuncture point. You have the Iwdba score. This is an American physician, Virginia Iwdba, who invented some kind of a scoring system with babies in order to find out whether or not this is something on the internet. Just go fast through it. You just do a search, Iwdba score, and you can download the article. But this is, to my opinion, what is important. If you're able to measure the heart rate of the puppy below 180 plus 220, the respiratory effort, no crying, while crying, or having cry, or crying, the reflex, irritability, the motility, and the mucous membrane odor. And here you have the scores. The higher it is, the better it gets. So if the heart rate is quite high, if the puppy is really crying, if he's really vigorous, if you are teasing him, if she or he is really active, and if the mucous membranes are punk, you get the highest scores, which means no distress. And the lower the score is, the worse it gets. Now, don't lose time doing all these things when your puppy is about to die. Do something else than trying to find out the Iwdba score, but at least you have this thing to find out more or less what's going on. Or if you have staff, you just appoint somebody to do this while you are doing what you should be doing. So the Iwdba score is performed within 5 minutes from birth. The reflex irritability was tested by gentle compression of the tip of a paw and evaluating the degree of reaction with respect. This this type of reaction that you have with this newly born puppy. And see if the legs retract and if they vocalize. And if it's below 6, if your score is below 6, you're in trouble. Okay, where am I on the slides? Okay, still tend to go for this one. Neonatology, the first 24 hours, colostrum, myelaxia, avoid hypothermia, no drugs, and then the routine stuff. About colostrum, colostrum is in fact the milk from the first 24 to 48 hours. They contain antibodies for local and systemic immunity. The colostrum is in fact, it's this greasy-like, very viscous type of milk. It's already there from days before parturition, so the bitch is already losing milk. And this is not a good way to find out when the dog is going to give birth, because there's already milk coming out. It's just there. But it's not always there, so, but sometimes not anymore on day one. Absorption only in the first 24 hours to provide systemic immunity, and it goes gradually. So it is an energy booster, of course, it contains energy, but it's all about the antibodies. As said here on the slide, the first 24 hours, the antibodies that are being circled up, they are allowed to go into the system to cause some amount of systemic immunity. Systemic means that the antibodies are really going around in the body and doing their work where they should be doing their work. Local immunity is when an infection occurs at some site in the body, and then there are some local soldiers, I would call the antibody soldiers, just trying to killing out the bugs on the local area. Yeah, this is a slide that I just copy-pasted from the people from Royal Canin, from Emmanuel Fontaine, very famous guy, but you just, it's about the amount of antibodies and the rise at birth, very high. Then it goes lower and lower. It's the colostrum. That's not the milk, of course. It's the colostrum, but in my opinion, it's very important. I would also urge you not to go straight away to giving some artificial milk when you have the impression that the pups are not suckling enough the first 12 hours. People seem to have a tendency to, yeah, let's just give them the artificial milk as soon as possible. It's sometimes easier for the puppy to suckle this artificial milk than to go and really suck hard on the mother, but you need to encourage them, let them lose a little bit of weight, it's not that bad, just to try to keep them warm and encourage them to start suckling the mother for the sake of the antibodies which are in the milk of the first 24 hours. Agalaxia is a nice term used for lack of production and or secretion of milk. There's a difference between production of the milk and letting the milk flow, as we call it. There's some primary reasons for this problem and some secondary problems. You cannot do much about the primary reasons, of course, but you can intervene in the secondary reasons. The food, of course, the body condition, the stress, the treatments that have occurred, the inflammation or infection from the mammary gland. So all things that you can do something about. Cesarean section performed too early or during anesthesia, all reasons to give secondary agalaxia. You cannot do tremendously about it, but try to find out the reasons, of course, and then try to stimulate the production of the milk. Now, metoclopramide, this is a drug that's used against vomiting that seems to have an influence on the production of milk. I'm sure you know metoclopramide. We call it Primperan in Europe. It's really just the regular stuff that you buy at the pharmacy. What is the brand's name you think?
Metamide?
Metamide? I don't have it. It's, yeah, so the active substance is metoclopramide. It's against vomiting. We don't use it for vomiting, but it seems to have an influence. There is this oral supplementation of galactogel. It's a plant extract. It has varying effects. There are several drugs on the market, I think, in order to stimulate the production of the milk, but it doesn't help that much. It's the ejection reflex provoked by the pups, which to my opinion is the most important. Try to make sure that the puppies suckle, and that provokes the production of oxytocin, which you can inject also, but it's all about the oxytocin. Once the oxytocin is there, the milk will really start flowing. And you can hear this, I'm sure you all breeders, or most of them, have already encountered the fact that at the beginning the puppies are really very, very nervous and that they're moving all about, and after a certain time you heard they really calm down and you hear and then you know that it's going. I usually take this timing to change the puppies. It's not nice. But you have the bad circulars and you have the good circulars. Use the good circulars to get the thing going. And then take the one which is really a little bit how do you call it? Less active or a little weak, just to put it at the nice nipple. Okay, that's not nice for the one who really provoked the injection reflex. Because he did a bad job, but anyway, this is a way how you can switch puppies at the correct time. But wait until you see it, and you see their tails also, they waggle different with a certain one. Really very nice to see. If you see that a couple of times, you can say, there it goes. Okay, improve the quality, provide improved quality and appetizing diet. Okay, milk replaces for puppies. Milk replaces the bottle, yeah, you all know how these things work. Don't let the puppy hang down because then you're going to get the milk right into the lungs. That's not a good idea. As far as hypothermia is concerned, puppy temperature in the first week, you have to try and keep the temperature high in the first few days. Because if it goes too low, no more digestion is taking place in the body of the puppy. If it's below 32 degrees Celsius, no more suction reflex occurs. And I'm really happy that you're also using Celsius here, because if I would give this lecture in the States, I have to convert to Fahrenheit. I don't know how it is. Now, something interesting that I heard this week at the breeding conference or at the IGDF seminar, I don't know, and I really agree on that one, is that if you keep the temperature water on the low end side, in the first few days the puppies have a tendency to crawl to the mother, which is positive in order to get this bonding effect. If it's nice and warm in the surroundings, why should the puppies try and crawl close to their mother to get warm? No. So you have to weigh and balance the advantages and disadvantages. Another reason why you should try to keep the temperature up is in order to avoid herpes infection. But again, what is the best? You should try and find what is the best on a certain situation. But if it's about the hypothermia, then I would encourage you to try to keep the environment quite warm. Definitely in the first week about 30 degrees Celsius, but the bitch hates it. It's much too warm for the mother. And you see that when you have this heating lamp or whatever device, the mother really crawls away. It's much too hot for her. So I would just see how things are evolving with the puppies, whether or not you're going to eat them all, yes or no. What I usually do is put them on a heating something underneath the puppies. I think that works much more easily than just try and get the environment as well as possible. But hypothermia do's and don'ts, the slow and progressive heat up where the pups are, not where the bitches, as I said. Some interesting links on that you can go and look for information. The one from the IGDF, there's information, I don't know if there are IGDF members here, but you can find a lot of information on the wiki. The EFSAR is this European Vet Association for Small Animal Reproduction. It's amongst a group of people in Europe. The internet gives access to everybody, of course. And then you have the ECAR, it's also a European thing. I'm sure that there's some international ones that exist too, but the ones from Europe seems to be working closely together, and there's a lot of information that you can retrieve from their websites. So to conclude, time of mating is, in my opinion, the most important thing. You don't overfeed in the first 5 weeks. You do X-ray at the end of pregnancy to find out how many puppies there were, and be prepared for problem puppies at the moment that you are encountered with the problems. That you have to be prepared on what might be going on. This is a picture of Larissa. This is a dog that we got from Guiding Eyes for the Blind in the US. And this is my daughter. I think this was her first litter. That must have been in 2015, So my daughter was only 15 years now. It's an old picture because the lady is one on the old side. So she was sitting in the whelping box taking care of the puppies. She didn't have to do that much, but just being there reassured the bitch that there was no reason to be afraid of whatever was happening. So this is my first lecture. So I'm gonna stop here. We call this basic reproduction. So we still have about 40 minutes, something like that. Yes, 45 minutes. I have a lecture not too long on herpes. I have a lecture on semen handling and analysis, and I have a short lecture on DCI. If I went fast, I'm able to do 3 of them, but I would start with the one that's of most interest to you. So, DCI, herpes, or semen stuff. Who goes for
TCI.
Everybody DCI. Okay, so let me go for this one. It's a lecture that I gave for my colleagues. We have a working group in Belgium that use endoscopy for whatever reason. I don't do a lab space, and I only go inside to do this DCI stuff. So I got to get experience on the other things, but DCI is in fact the thing that I do. Okay, you need to have the proper equipment, you need to restrain the dog, you need to know about the anatomy, you need to know about the technique, and a couple of questions. So what I purchased is this device from Storz. I think it's a company in Germany, but you don't have to have this. This is in fact quite an easy tool because it gets everything that I need. This is the light source here, this grayish thing. Here, this is an interesting tool. There's some air coming out, and I'm going to explain to you why it's so useful. The camera is attached to this one, and then you have the nice software in here. You have a USB stick. You have this, how do you call it in English? Typing board?
Keyboard.
A keyboard, yeah, a keyboard that you can enter all the information that you need. So, and this fits perfectly in a carry-on luggage from Samsonite. So if you want to fly over the world, you can put it, I wouldn't recommend you to put this in the check luggage because then I think that the tool is damaged. But this is nice if you want to go somewhere else to do DCI. But I think that not only you have this nice equipment from Storz, the big tower, exactly the same thing, quality-wise, of course. This is, let's say, the thing that nearly everybody uses. It's the mini tube endoscope. It's really very, very long. It's 43 centimeters. You really need to have this when you have this large breed dogs. You don't need this in a Chihuahua because then it will come out of its mouth. But I would recommend you to buy this. It's a little bit flexible. I won't encourage you to do the bending, but to some extent it works. It is really very small, and the smaller it is, the more sharper this thing gets. So you have to be quite careful going in. This is the camera. Here you can put in catheters. Here you can flush anything. This is the entrance of the light. This is something also sold by Minitube. To be honest, I'm not so in favor of it. This is in fact a tool that you can put in the vagina. This is rubber-like stuff. You can blow it up that it gets bigger over here, and it seems to copy-paste more or less the notice from the penis, but because it's rubber, it also means that you have to push your scope through the inside here, of course, and then have the impression that it doesn't slide easily. So you do this like this. I hate it, some of them like it, but I only show it because they are available. Do you like these things, Diane?
We've got one.
Yeah. Try it outside of the bridge first. You just do as if you're using it, and then I really don't like it. This is to overcome the problems that you encounter when you're putting in the scope, to overcome the problems that you have, that you're not entering the urethra. The urethra, so the entrance to to the bladder, or that you hit the clitoris, which is really hated. But if you're careful, you don't, to be honest, you don't need this kind of device. These are in fact the cannulae that you can buy, different brands, different prices. Of course, try and go for the cheapest, because sometimes it's not about it. So there are several. This is again in Europe, but I think that you know.
$20 Australian.
20 Australian for what?
Wow.
That's not cheap.
No.
So maybe you can copy this this barcode here, and you order them. I don't know where they come from, Ireland. I don't know how much they cost, but definitely cheaper than $20. And they come in packages of 10, and I think it was €8 or €8. It's $12, $12 Australian dollars for catheter. So what is so important with these catheters? Do they have one entrance at the side, one entrance at the end? Do they have two entrances? To my opinion, I've learned this from Clover, guiding us for the blind, the one with the side opening is, to my opinion, the best. Because you put in this catheter into the vagina, you move it up to the level of the cervix, and then you just try to put the tip inside. It takes you some effort to get the tip inside the cervix. To my opinion, that's the most difficult thing. To get the tip of the catheter inside, let's say, the small mouse. And then you still have the opening visible with your camera. And then what you do is you put in the sperm up till you see the first drop of sperm coming out here, and then you move it forward. Why is that so important? Because otherwise you're filling up the cervix with the air inside here. And you're not gonna first fill your whole catheter with sperm and then try to find your way to the entrance. And somebody waiting there just to thaw the semen at the moment that you were able to get your entrance. You say, okay guys, I'm in here for about a centimeter, thaw it, put it in until you see the first drop that you lose. It's not a big thing, or you see it moving here. This is a catheter that's not clear, so you don't see it moving up, but at least you see the first drop falling out, and then you move it in further on. This is a picture taken at Guiding Eyes for the Blind. So here you see that I've taken my carry-on luggage thing to put my sports equipment inside. This is somebody from Southeastern Guide Dogs in Texas? Florida. And my wife, Meety Clover Williams from Guiding Eyes for the Blind. This is the restraining tool that they used. Let it go back. Here's the head. The head should be pointing that way. The dog is really, here you see the dog standing, of course. Here's